yesterday. Researchers are learning about more younger people under 40 having heart attacks. They say genetics plays a big role. That's why during this American Heart Month, Kevin told listener Seven's Gabriella, she wants to work for her loss. Bobby and Jim married in October of 2013. Absolute best day of their life. Jim adopted Molly's older son, and they had two more boys together. I feel like I have like my happy ever after, like my perfect story. But Molly's family had a tragic ending. She murdered in the news on June 3rd, 2017. Started came running downstairs and just had fallen on the ground. He wasn't really responding. He wasn't really saying much. He just said, "Keep running." Molly called 911, and the life they built with their three boys flatly over as she was rushed to the hospital. I was able to tell John 911 and told me he left me. And said, "I want you to be okay." It was really hard to see all these things that I was around him. But I didn't stay with him very long. They said there was nothing that they could do. And he passed away. I said, "Do you have any idea what happened?" Because he's a healthy 36-year-old guy. Do you have any idea what happened? And he said, it was either.
Hello, my name is Derek L. Ford, president of the Dayton unit of the NAACP. Tonight, we're going to educate you regarding pre-planning and burial services, something that our community really needs to understand. I'm going to introduce you now to the chair of our communications committee, not communications committee, but our community coordination committee. And that is by ways of our first vice president, Maddie P. White. And she also serves as our community coordination chair. So Maddie, and please introduce your guest.
Thank you, Dr. Ford, and thank you for your leadership in providing information to our community and in keeping with the mission of the NAACP to inform, to educate, and to empower. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Dayton Unit NAACP presentation on pre-planning and burial services. Pre-planning is an important support to our loved ones who are left to make critical decisions about our resting place at an emotional time in their lives. Tonight's presentation is going to be given by Ms. Dominique Vanzant. Ms. Vanzant is a pre-planning advisor for the West Memory Gardens. She's been with West Memory Gardens for 6 years. She also has firsthand experience in planning for the loss of a loved one. I encourage you to please tell friends, families, everyone about the information that you receive in tonight's session. Tonight's session is going to be 1 hour on Zoom and Facebook. Without further delay, I'm going to, I've introduced, and now I'm going to present to you Ms. Dominique Vanzant, who's going to give us valuable information because we know that dying is a part of life.
That it is. Thank you, Mrs. White, and I greatly appreciate you guys asking me to come on. One thing that I'm very big on is pre-planning, especially after dealing with some of the losses that I have. So I'm going to give a little brief about myself and my pre-planning experience, also about my loss, because I have dealt with both hand in hand of dealing with a burial that has not had pre-planning versus one that has. My name is Dominique Vanzant. I've been working with the company West Memory Gardens for 6 years. When I go into the community and I give out information about pre-planning, that is not just for you to come to West Memory Gardens. That is for you to go wherever your loved ones may be. Fortunately, in our community, a lot of our loved ones are at West Memory Gardens, so it's definitely encouraged just to pre-plan for wherever your loved ones are at, whether if it's Woodland, Dayton Memorial, just kind of be prepared for just your final resting places overall. The first thing that I do want to say is when I lost my husband going on 6 years ago, I was not working at West Memory Gardens yet. But I had been coming to West Memory Gardens since I was a little girl with my grandfather. And with my dad and my mother, my whole family is buried out there. Knowing that they pre-planned, my grandfather would always tell me that he had family plots. It was never something that I thought about for myself or my household. Don't know why. Just guess I was listening, but I wasn't listening. My grandfather in the 60s bought 20 spaces, which after passing away in 2016, he still had about 6 spaces left that were left over to his living relatives. And saying that is that when people pre-plan, it is not just for themselves. Sometimes it is, sometimes it's for their loved ones. I have people that have pre-planned with me that are being buried at the VA. They just know they have loved ones that they want to take care of, and they know the importance because of what you can save and how you go about pre-planning versus having to pay something overall. So I want to go into something that I learned when I first started working at my job for pre-planning and training. Insurance is something that is very important that our community lacks, but it's also something that's not always affordable. But the main thing is insurance is for the living. And we say that because when you look at insurance, you have to have a beneficiary. So that means they have to be in charge of what happens in your final days or when something happens when you pass. I've been working at West Memory Gardens for 6 years, and I'll tell you, I don't think that people always go about that in the way that we would want. That's one of the reasons why we encourage pre-planning, because it gives you more of an outlet to do things the way that you want to be memorialized. So give me 1 second. Then the other importance is you don't have to be a burden on your family. You don't have to fundraise, and then you're prepared. When a life insurance agent comes into your home, a majority of the time, the one thing that you can afford is what is a burial for at that time. So when a life insurance agents come, they want to sell you about a $10,000 to a $20,000 policy. That may not cover everything that your family needs for the lifestyle that you guys are living while you guys are here. So with us, it takes about 3 years. The benefit of pre-planning is that you can make payments, you get a discount, you're able to let your family members know exactly what you want, whether if it's designing your stone, whether if it's, and oh goodness, I'm sorry, you guys, I'm just a little off topic on what I wrote. And now, excuse me, you guys, that's an Amber Alert. Okay. So, sorry, I'm back. So the fact that you're able to give your family the proper information that you need in order to, you guys have to excuse me. I was a little bit more prepared when I was talking to you, wasn't I, Mrs. White? I'm just all over the place at my house.
Fine. You're absolutely fine, because the information you've shared thus far is valuable. So just flow with it, because it's all good to us.
Yes, it is. Okay. So, okay, I'll go dead into the pre-planning aspect of what I do at work. So one thing that I do, in order to be buried at a cemetery, you have to have 3 things. You have to have a plot, which is your land, which some people also refer to as a space. You have to have a vault, which is a concrete liner that your casket goes into, and it protects your casket. It is state required. And then you have to have an opening and closing. Okay, opening and closing is when you break the ground, that's digging of the ground, into closing the ground. This is not always affordable for loved ones, especially at the time of. So at my job, what my job is I provide pre-planning as well as at need, but I always recommend pre-planning because you can save that way. and then saving significantly. A burial at West Memory Gardens is around $4,000. For pre-planning, you save about 30% off of that full burial package, as well as you get the opportunity to make payments. So it definitely becomes more affordable over time. And like I was saying before, you can have that paid off within about 36 months. Sometimes we stretch it to about 48 months and then you're done. When I was referring to what my grandfather did in the 60s, the reason why I tell you guys that now is because even if you did not use it, it can still be inherited to your next of kin and your loved ones. So that is something that I definitely think is very important, because when people generally come into our jobs, they have older policies or not affordable policies. So they might have $5,000, $10,000. And by the time they leave the funeral home, that is already taken. Another thing is with life insurance, we see a lot of people on fixed income and some elderly that may go into a nursing home. Those policies are sometimes taken from them because they're not allowed to have those while being in a nursing facility. And a lot of people don't realize that. So then they end up having to call to do a spin down, coming right back to us for something that they could have already probably had paid off a long time ago. So that's definitely something, as well as I try to reach out to our youth about pre-planning, because at this point in time, we're very wasteful. When you're younger, you bring in income, you buy things that you don't necessarily need. But when things like this happen, you expect for somebody else to foot the bill. So I say that because I see a lot of our younger generations, they come in and they're worried about materialistics, but they're not worried about reality. And death is one. So we do. And even for, like I said, for children, because I see a lot of people, especially in this generation, not caring about pre-planning or insurance. And then everybody is kind of looking for a handout. So my job is to kind of educate people on what they can do, so you don't have to worry about GoFundMe's and fundraising and asking, because sometimes, especially at the time of need, it can not only be embarrassing, it can be overwhelming, because all we want to do at that moment is grieve. We want to make sure our loved ones are taken care of properly without having to depend on others, and be able to say that we took care of our loved ones. One thing that I also tell people is that a lot of people do not feel like it's affordable to pre-plan, and it most definitely is. A pair of shoes for one of my kids is $200, and a pre-planning burial for a down payment is around $133. That's just for a down payment. A monthly payment, not even $70. And there's packages that are less than that. And you think about it, sometimes that's less than some people's monthly assurances. If you don't really get insurance at a younger age and you have pre-health conditions, it's not affordable. But a lot of people aren't knowledgeable that they can even pre-plan, not only with just the cemetery, but as well as the funeral homes. The most important thing is also more communication in our community about what we want for our final days. We get a lot of people that come into our cemetery and they're guessing. They're guessing what their loved ones may have liked, whether it's designing of the headstone, color of the casket, whether if it's what kind of flowers they liked. When you pre-plan, you can give all that information to the cemetery and the funeral home. So that way your loved ones do not have to guess if you wanted to wear your glasses in the casket, or if you wanted them to keep it, or if you wanted a dress or pantsuit. You know, these things that we don't look as being important are very much so important, because at that moment of grieving, I've seen family members argue, not talk to each other. I've seen fights just because somebody feels like they know something about their loved one that the other one didn't, and it's not always true. We have pre-planning books, which is called a pre-planning family guide that provides this information, because there's around 67 things that you can do prior to make sure that your family members and your loved ones know how you want to be memorialized. And it's not all at the cemetery, it's just overall. Rather, if it's you're a vet and you decide not to go to the VA and you decide to come to a cemetery of your choice, or rather if it's, sorry about that, because the VA provides a bronze for the actual plot. They don't provide the granite, they just provide the memorial bronze, and they still do their tribute to the contribute the loved ones for their services. Another thing is,
Dominique, may I jump in and ask a question?
yes,
right here?
Yeah, I was going to ask a question too.
I wanted to ask you, does pre-planning include a tombstone? I mean, is a tombstone within that pre-planning package? Can you do that?
You most definitely can. So with pre-planning, you don't have to do everything at once. We try to make it affordable over time, just because sometimes you may just want to start on your plot that's affordable for you. Sometimes some families can do everything at once. You can always add on later. So most definitely it does. The only thing is we have about 5 different stones that you can select from. So my recommendation is always either to do a virtual call with me or to come out and meet with me to look at those and to get your different options.
President Ford, you had a question?
Yes. I forgot my question. Would you like to share the screen? And is there like something that you can share on the screen, Ms. Vanzant? If we were to make you a co-host, is there something that you can share on the screen, like some slides or a PowerPoint or anything?
I did not have that. No, give me 1 second.
Okay.
And I was also wondering, when you pre-plan, for instance, when you are pre-planning a particular company, or just say like your business, do I have an opportunity to change my burial space if I pre-plan with you, but I decided to do something else, and maybe, or is there like an assigned area that I have to go with?
So when you pre-plan, you have the option. So we're a heritage cemetery. So we're big on people being buried next to their loved ones. That's why I encourage that if you are within a family that knows that they're going to be buried at West Memory Gardens or anywhere, that you guys all do that together. But if you decided to pre-plan for just yourself, and then later on you said, I want to put my children or my uncle or someone, so there's not a space next to where I pre-planned, let me move that location so he can be next to me. Yes, that is always an option. Once you become the owner of a plot or pre-planning, you can also sell it. So say that you decided that you're going to relocate to another state. You can either sell it, you can give it to another loved one, you can use it for something else, or you can transfer it. If you transfer it, it would be transferable to another state dollar for dollar, as long as they're not a private cemetery like a church.
Might I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
This is Sharon Nolan. Hi. You had said that there was a pre-planning book. How do you get that book? Is it something online or?
Well, we have them in our office. It is a pre-planning family guide book. That book holds information It actually holds heritage information too. What a lot of people don't realize, especially when it's their first time doing a burial, is that for a death certificate, there's information that you need. Sometimes we get people that come into our location that want information about loved ones that they've never met. It could be a grandparent that they want to come and visit, and they just want some kind of record. They want to know some kind of information about this loved one. And we keep all these records. But if you have this book that you can fill out, these are things that you can leave for your loved ones. It even has things about medical, because a lot of people, if somebody passed when you're in your younger age and you weren't able to know if they had diabetes or, any known medical diseases or anything that you would need to let your doctors or something know, these can all be placed in that book, just to kind of help you know a little bit more about yourself. Also in that book, it has a space for husband and wife. It also has a note. So on the back of the book, the last page, there's something where you can write your loved ones something with your signature just to leave to them so they can have. It also has information where you can provide things on how you may want to be memorialized, whether if you would like to be in the ground, if you would like to be cremated, or if you would like to be in a mausoleum. Another thing that I haven't talked about is cremation. We have a lot of cremation options. This is something that is becoming more popular. That some people want to be buried traditionally and some people want to be cremated. We have a cremation headstone, where around 4 cremations can be placed inside the headstone, as well as in ground. 2 cremations can be placed in ground at one time, as well as 1 casket and 1 cremation. We also have a cremation niche, which is similar to a mausoleum, that holds your cremains.
Do people get cremated after funeral services? After they've had the whole, they do? Okay.
They do. Some people, so I've had people come and pre-plan for cremations. After your services, it takes this funeral home about no more than a week to give your loved ones their cremations back. They'll put it in an urn, and then some people will come out and they'll have them buried. Some people will hold on to them until they're ready to let go, and then they'll come and bury, but they'll pre-plan for them. It just is completely how your family or what your wishes are.
In terms of cost, generally a funeral with the body present versus a cremation and a memorial service, generally, how does that compare in price? About the same, a little more?
With cremation services, it's a little less expensive, but it's not much when you come to the cemetery part. It is definitely, give me 1 second, my screen just disappeared here. It is definitely less expensive at the actual funeral home. So you can be looking for cremation with a burial, depending on where you go, from anywhere from around $1,400 to around about $3,500. For a traditional burial, you looking around anywhere from $3,500 to around $9,000. And then when you come to the cemetery, then you have our cost.
And generally, what's the cost of a cemetery? Just that portion of the whole.
For traditional, you're looking at about $4,000 if you're not pre-planning, around $2,700 with the discount if you do pre-plan. For cremation, if you do a niche, you're looking at around $3,700. If you do a traditional, you can be looking with a headstone around $3,200, without a headstone around $1,600.
I have one more question before you go more into your presentation. I see that African Americans are being courted by non-Black funeral businesses. What do you attribute to this crossover?
Um, well, I hope none of them are watching, but if you want my eye.
Yeah, I'm sure we do on Facebook and other places, and we got one on phone.
But one of the things that I will tell people, and this is just from me and my personal experiences as well as working into the business, is that you don't want to rush. When you cross over, it's not always a good thing. You have to remember, people have commercials and different things for selling purposes, and that number that they give you on those commercials and those ads, there's so much more to it. I won't say any direct names, but I do know of one particular funeral home that I know that a lot of people go to based off of ads and commercials, and it says $3,000, and then when they get there, they're at about 10. They have some hidden fees. I just always think, and this is one of the reasons why pre-planning definitely helps you. When you pre-plan, you have more time to look into these things, and to also educate your family and loved ones. I don't know, did the screen just go blank there?
Did you want to share your screen now?
Okay, I can see. So definitely, that's one of the benefits of pre-planning, is that you have that opportunity to definitely get the direct prices ahead of time before you call somebody and have to make a what can be a bad decision.
Once you have purchased a plan and you have everything set, and for whatever reason, unpredictable, unforeseen, your beneficiary and the succession of your beneficiary changes, what happens to your plan resting services when there is no assigned beneficiary? You know, let's just say someone else has to carry out your wishes. All the family members have out of reach, and now it's a neighbor or a church member or what happened. Is your plan honored?
So so that's kind of a funeral home thing as well. So I've had that. I've had services where people have absolutely.
Hey, I want you to get online. We're talking about pre-planning and stuff. I didn't tell you, did I?
So so I've had services where people have had literally no next of kin. They're the last one. What they generally do is they will go and make the funeral home the beneficiary, not the cemetery. They'll make the funeral home, and then the funeral home will contact us to get some kind of pricing at the time of. Or they'll come and pre-plan with us and pre-plan with them to have their wishes set out the way that they want. We do help. So it's not really a big deal to us if they don't have pallbearers. I've helped carry caskets. Our maintenance is out there to help carry caskets. So yes, that is something that has been done quite a few times. That is that's one of the reasons why I said too. I know H&H Roberts is a good one. Thomas, House of Weed. You have Donald Jordan. These are all, you have Lucene. These are all people that I know. They do pre-planning for cremation. You have Richard Pryor Funeral Home, which is new in Trotwood. Very affordable for cremations. Him and Donald Jordan are definitely two that I recommend for cremations. They're very affordable. All the other ones are definitely ones that I recommend for burials. It's just about going in, calling, and just saying, hey, you know, I would like some information because I know that I want to use your services, whether if it's because a loved one has, or you just want the information about their funeral home and funeral services. Locking in those prices because the prices of inflation is real. It's one of the things why I said when a insurance agent comes into your house to sell you, he's going to sell you based off today's prices, not based off of inflation prices. So he's going to come in and a $10,000 policy is probably going to be most affordable for your household. In 5-10 years, that $10,000 policy will not be affordable for your household. And they know that. And they kind of, honestly, they bank on things like that. So unless you don't have any real and the smallest things can be a preconditioned health issue for insurance policies. So if you just don't have anything that's contestable, and then they also look at age. So I always say the most affordable policies are the policies that you get people at birth. And it honestly is. If it's not a policy that you got for somebody under the age of 14 or under, generally it's best just to look at pre-planning.
So what happens, Sharon Nolan again, what happens if, say, you pre-plan with a funeral home for that portion of the service and that funeral home folds? What happens to the money that you've paid up front to take care of those services?
So after that situation happened to one of our older funeral homes, what I seen is for me being knowledgeable for H&H, because that's who I use. What they do is they become knowledgeable. Well, I'm sorry, not knowledgeable. They become responsible over your policy, or they put it in an escrow where it earns. So that's so what they do. It's some kind of it's almost oh goodness, I'm trying to think of the name for it for them. And it's not nothing that you can do with us at the cemetery. It's literally just for an actual funeral home. So they have a certain funding agency that they can put your funds into where your money grows for the price of inflation. If they were to close, that money would still be available for you to use. You just would have to have another beneficiary. So you can make them your beneficiary as someone else.
Well, in talking about insurance at this point in time, would you say that there is an advantage with short-term versus whole life with regards to burials?
No. Once again, you know, insurance is for the living. It's about what you would want to do for your loved ones. If you plan on having a policy for yourself, if you plan on having a policy to take care of your loved ones, your household. Some people want larger policies because they still have a mortgage. I've had plenty of people tell me that they're worth more dead than alive, and that money would be to take care of their wife or their children if something happened to them. Some people just say we want a policy just to take care of our arrangements, and they have a proper person that's going to do it. It's really, it's different for each household. I've seen people that have had large policies that have said, my mom didn't want me to spend any money in burying, and they did the cheapest burial possible with having a $500,000 policy. It is really, for me, on term and whole life. Term is, they have some that are about 30 years, I believe, is the max for a term. It's just a gamble. And generally you get a term because you want a larger amount to take care of the ones that you have to leave behind. A whole life is generally something that somebody gets because they know that it doesn't have an age limit, and it's to somewhat take care of your loved ones, to leave something, but also ultimately to take care of themselves at final time.
Well, this is very good information for us. Are there any other salient points that you want people to be aware of with regards to pre-planning and burial? You know, as I said at the introduction of this presentation, that, you know, the whole part of dying and having to make decisions regarding how our loved ones are going to be placed to rest, it's a very emotional time, and sometimes it can be quite a controversial and conflicting times in families and in communities. So do you have any advice with regards to how people in the planning do a distribution? You have families coming in with distributing or trying to work together to parcel out for the cost, you know, of the burial services.
I do, because I see it. I see it a lot. The main thing is that ultimately you just have to look at things as you don't want to be a burden. You don't want to be a burden in life. You don't want to be a burden in death. And when you think of it like that, you'll become more aware. In our community, some people, and I had a friend actually 2 days ago that procrastinated for about a year on pre-planning because he was just scared. He felt like it was wishing death upon himself, like it was jinxing him. We have to get out of that mindset. It's immature. You got to grow up. You have to be responsible for yourself and your loved ones, the people that you bring into this world. You have to teach them. You have to make them knowledgeable on things so they're not a burden. And so their final days, so people can, I mean, the grieving process ultimately is different in every way. Everybody doesn't die of old age and health. So it's definitely is something that we have to look at, and we need to, in our community, take more control of. We have to stop what I would like to say is a form of begging. It can be, you know, and sometimes, you know, we need, but not always. Not always. I see some people, they'll fundraise, and then, you know, I'll see them next week with a Burberry dress on, and me being responsible, me don't own not one Burberry dress, but I didn't have to fundraise, you know, either. And it's just, you know, I tell people all the time, it's really, and not to offend nobody, it's not to do that, but it's too affordable to make excuses. It's too affordable to have to reach out to everyone. And sometimes, you know, us in our community, we want to do things depending on the situation. But right now it's looking like everybody is looking for somebody to do something upon death in any situation. Because
No, go. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And to me, I believe that's because they see that, hey, if they did it for them in that tragic situation, they should do it for anybody in any loss. And I think that's selfish for some people in my eyes.
So if people, from a pre-planning standpoint, approximately how much money would a person need to have if they want to go out and get a policy? You know, just for the cemetery part. Now, if you know about the funeral part, that'd be great as well, the funeral home part. But to have a nice burial in terms of opening, closing, and the headstone and everything that happens at the actual cemetery, you know, approximately how much money would a person need to have a nice home going for their loved one? at the cemetery. And then if you know the funeral home, that'd be helpful as well.
So for the cemetery, approximately with a headstone, you'll be looking anywhere, and this is including a headstone. Without a headstone, I can do pre-planning for $2,641.10. A down payment of $133, a monthly payment of $69.67. That's without a headstone. With a headstone, $4,361.10. That is with a flat headstone. That is with the down payment of $220 and a monthly of, give me 1 second and I'll give you the exact number on that monthly. A monthly of $116. Now we also have other headstones. We have benches, and they do carry different prices depending on the color and the stone that you get. But ultimately, at the funeral home, I don't see you spending, well, at the cemetery, I don't see you spending any more than around maybe $6,000 to $6,500, just depending on everything that you do. Now for a funeral home, depending on how you go. On the low end, you'll be looking at around $4,000. On the high end, you're looking at around about $9,000. Once again, it just depends. Pre-planning gives you a little bit more leeway to do exactly what you would want, because you get discounts and because you can save and because you can make payments. So you don't have to sit there and say, I really want a bench, but I'm going to get a flat because that's what I feel like we can afford. And that's what I see a lot of people do. So what we're doing is we're giving you the opportunity to be memorialized how you want. And it goes the same. When you walk into a funeral home, you'll have a 1,000 casket colors and caskets that you can put, you can engrave, you could do a lot of things, but ultimately it's what you can afford to do as well.
So basically between the grave site and the funeral home, a person really needs to plan for probably about $16,000 to have a decent burial, for their loved one. So then if they get a policy, maybe like a $25,000 policy, do you have any idea about how much maybe a $25,000 policy would be for someone?
Depending on your health conditions, you
right.
may be looking at around, so if you get it, let's say this, you wait late till you're in your career, you're in your 30s, and you decide you want to get life insurance. Some people think they're covered because they have one through their job. Well, what happens when you lose your job? You no longer have insurance through that job. That's one thing that I've seen plenty of times. The other thing is sometimes a job will carry it, but they'll say, okay, if you no longer work for us, the price of that is now higher. It's not always affordable. So you can be looking at anywhere from $130 to $150 a month. It could be a little less depending, but please don't be a smoker or a drinker or anything like that. My God, if you're a smoker and you're a male, I feel sorry for you guys. I hope you don't drive a red car because I really feel sorry for all your insurances then. But nevertheless, oh goodness. But nevertheless, it definitely is something that I don't see being real affordable over time for a life. When you're looking at whole life insurances, you have to look at, I'm sitting down with you at the age of 30 to when I may be 85, is that $125 still going to be affordable for me to take out if I'm able to? No, I'm going to keep my lights on, or I'm going to take care of my great grandchild or my grandchild or even my own child, before I pay that policy. And a lot of people don't understand. Well, I see it a lot, is that people will come into the cemetery or the funeral home and they'll say, my grandmother has life insurance. And then when we go to check on that policy, well, grandma had to borrow it for her mortgage, and then she wasn't able to pay it back. Yes, she's been talking to you about life insurance your whole life, but it no longer became affordable for her when she got older in age, and she no longer has it. Then you go and now they got to cremate grandma, and that's not nobody's wishes. Just for that particular household, you know. So it's different scenarios. It just really, it depends on each individual household. I always tell people communication is the key. Me and you have had many conversations. You're going to ask 1,000 questions that I know about you. So, so I know for a fact that when I'm talking to you, it's either be detailed as possible. He's still gonna need something else from you to make sure that he's for certain that that's what he's getting and that's what he's doing, and that nothing is going to change. I wish more people honestly were like you, because you cannot guess these things. You have to know. I'll use my dad, for instance. My dad thought he had insurance and paid all his children's insurance, but didn't realize he wasn't paying his own. So when it was time to bury him, we had to pay out of pocket because there was no insurance. So it's things that even too, and I say that because when we have these things, it's communication. You even have to communicate with some of these businesses that you're involved with. So when people look at the cemetery, they'll call us periodically and say, we want to do a record review, because we want to know that we have everything, because I'm getting older and I don't know if I have my opening and closing. I know I bought my plot. Did I get my vault? Did I get it through you guys? Did I get it through the funeral home? And communication is the key just on life in general. And you have to communicate with your families and not be afraid to talk about life and death, because if you don't, it will be harder on them. If they go through life thinking that they'll never lose you, trust me, it will be harder on them, and they won't be prepared to lose you. So I want my children to be prepared to lose me. I don't want my children walking into a cemetery or a funeral home grieving and not knowing what to do, or not knowing what I wanted them to do. So it starts ultimately in your household, because I can't go and tell anybody, and I can answer these questions individually, but I can't tell everybody on live that, hey, your household doesn't want to cremate, or your household wants to go into the mausoleum. You guys have to discuss what's best for your household. And then you call and you individually get those pricings and information that accommodates your loved ones and yourself.
You need to unmute.
I am.
Dominique.
There you go.
Talking to me, I'm sorry. There are some financial institutions such as credit unions that offer life insurance policies just by virtue of you being a member and having an account. Have you seen in your experience that these policies are redeemable? Do they make good on them?
Once again, it's about when you're looking at agencies, and I'll use my car insurance. I'm with State Farm. State Farm most definitely sends me quotes all the time about different life insurance policies, and I did take up on one for my children, actually, because sometimes when you bundle them, you do get better offers. So yes, they do. It's just reading the fine clauses of pre-existing things, making sure that they don't have any, that there's not anything about BMIs, which is your I know my son had some issues with his BMI, with him being so tall and being a larger kid, you know, that can be a cause of them to not accept the policies, and just making sure that whatever questions that they ask you are accurate, because they will ask just as any other policy. And if they find out that you didn't tell them something, I have seen them not honor the policies.
Okay. You mentioned earlier that there are state laws that govern, I mean, I guess laws are abound when we come into the world, and we are affected by laws when we leave the world. So what can you share with us some of the laws that we need to know about, you know, what's required, why I may not want to purchase a pine box to put my loved one in?
Well, you can purchase a pine box if you want to. The only law that we have is that you have to be placed inside of a vault, unless if you are Muslim. Then they have what you still at our cemetery still have to be in a vault, but they do have Muslim gardens at different cemeteries. So that is one, and that state requirement just became that's an old state requirement. And what I was told is it became when caskets and different things used to come back up, just because of our weather conditions. It's not down south where it's nice and sunny and they don't have to have that there, but we do, just because of our weather conditions. The other thing for different state laws, the cemetery is different than a funeral home. So every time somebody purchases something with us, we have to put it in a different escrow for, it's a funding just in case of something happens. So if our business had to close, we still have to be able to maintain it. So we have different laws than the actual funeral home as a business that can close down. So I know sometimes people worry about that, because they'll say, hey, Dominique, you know, well, what if we come up here and we pre-planned and nobody's here, you know, next year? Well, we still have to do burials. It's called perpetual care. We still have to put up funding individually to make sure that lawn care and everything gets done over a long period of time. So we're just not one business, and the business has been exchanged. I know some people say that, what if it goes into the hands of another company? But one thing that I know is that our company has been sold 3 times. That has not changed anything that anybody has done over time. And I know that because, like I said earlier, my grandfather pre-planned in the 60s, and I looked at his records when I started working there, and he still had everything that he owned prior to passing.
Okay. Well, this has been a wonderful session. And before we wrap up, we want to give our participants an opportunity to ask any burning questions that they have regarding pre-planning and burial services. Well, it looks like everybody's ready to go, Dominique. They got it all worked out.
No, they ain't got all worked out. I see several people on the call that you could ask questions, and it's important to ask questions, because no question, the only dumb questions one not asked. So, so when it comes down to pre-planning and understanding the costs associated with it, and even if you got on a call late, you should be able to ask a question that you may not have an answer to, especially, so apparently I guess everybody on the call has already taken care of their plot at the cemetery. They know what cemetery they're going to be buried at. They've already taken care of all the costs. They know what funeral home is going to take care of their final, the body and other loved one's body, and how much it's going to cost. And, I just think that would be good if you all would just ask some questions, because this is the time. Don't wait. She already told us, don't wait until after the fact. This is the time now.
Yeah, something very important. And I'll tell you, everybody isn't, some people, and like I said, I just had a friend that waited a year, and he just came and did it the other day and pre-planned, and Oh God, he walked in the door halfway. I didn't know what was going on, but he did it. Everybody isn't as open to asking things publicly. Some people want to do it privately. If that's the case, I'm definitely willing to. You guys, excuse me, earlier I got kids running around and just all kind, and I was kind of looking, my notes got a little blurry on me, but overall, you know, I think this ended up being a good, definitely a good meeting. So what I will say is, if you individually want to discuss something with me about your loved ones, if it's at West Memory Gardens, or if you just have questions about another cemetery or a funeral home, or you want me to refer you somewhere, my name is Dominique. My number is 937-677-8202. That is my personal line. You can reach me Monday through Sunday. I really don't have a time on that. I'm up, it seems like always, but I'm always willing to answer individual calls and questions, and just to help families in their needs. If you guys need anything, also know that West Memory Garden also does baby burials at no cost. I know that is something that some people do not know. That is something that we do feel like is a trying moment for any parent, any household family members, to lose a child, and we do try to help as often as possible.
What's the age of the child?
I'm sorry, I have a question in the chat box. And the question is that if you have a parent who would like to be plotted in another state, how do you plan for that transition?
So, there's something called travel care. So we do have people that they move and they know that they're coming back to be buried at West Memory a lot. I get people, so you have to become knowledgeable about your travel expenses for that loved one, and that happens at a funeral home. They also have something that you can look up, which is called a travel insurance. I don't know, every travel insurance is a different prices, but I do know that it's more affordable than paying at the time of, and it will bring your loved ones back here to the actual funeral home. Once again, that's something that you would have to individually look up. If you would like me to, that is something that I can help you with. You just need to call me and let me know. But that does happen a lot, but that's more so a funeral home thing, because the body still has to come to a funeral home in order to be transported to us. So it is two different expenses. Generally, what would happen is the state that you pass in, you would go to a funeral home and be embalmed there, and then placed for travel.
Okay, and I know, like in my situation, go ahead, Maddie. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So, like I know in my situation, or our family situation, my mother is going, who lives in Georgia, but she's going to have her service and everything down in Georgia at her church, and then she's gonna be buried up here at West Memory, and there's already a plot right there at West Memory next to my dad. So, yeah, I would definitely be interested in knowing about that travel insurance. To kind of so we'll know exactly what that cost is, and you know how to deal with that, because she's definitely going to come back up here to her final resting place. So,
and there, to add to that, I would just say, because I have experience with Glenn's brother when he passed away down in Florida, and we had to get him back up here. You have to make home down there, or wherever the person is, how they're going to transport the body back up here, because they can either do plane or do train. And my experience was a train, and that was a whole lot of different situations. So you also just got to make sure you got to figure out the funeral home down near that, or wherever the person is, that how they transport the body as well to another state.
Yeah, most definitely.
So, but what kind of cost is that? You know, so a person just did it without the insurance.
I have one question for you.
All right, hold on for a second. Hold on. So, but how much would somebody be looking at on that cost? just, you know, if it happened today and they didn't have insurance?
I've seen somebody in Vegas pay $3,500. I've seen somebody in Georgia pay around $4,000, but these are all included in the embalming. Georgia is a little different, and I do want to do some research for you on that, because Georgia made them pay, I think, like $1,000 to rush a death certificate.
Oh, wow.
But Georgia has different fees, and you know, it depends on what state you're in. That's why I said sometimes, and this is just, you know, being knowledgeable about pre-planning and asking these questions ahead of time. You know, it is definitely some research that we can definitely do for you. I don't mind helping you with that to try to find the insurance, because I know that would be ultimately more affordable versus having to do it out of pocket at the time of, and also finding the right funeral home down there, and knowing that she's still going to resign there, because sometimes people will start knowing that, hey, I'm getting up there, it's maybe time for me to come back home. So that's a communication piece, you know, for you and your mother as well, because she may want to come back home, but you're saying she's going to do the services down there, which I've seen that plenty of times as well too, where they'll have services and then come back. And if that's the route that she plans on going, definitely go communicate with some funeral homes there to see the best option.
Okay, yeah, because she definitely said that she's going to have her service down there. She's already told all 6 of her kids that her service will be down there, and then that she will have her service here. I mean, be buried here. Harvey, I'm sorry. Go ahead. So you had a question, but I do got another question. You know, if you can just put a pin in my question, and then but answer Harvey's question first. But I do have a question. Since I'm going to pay for my plot and everything. Well, all my stuff is already taken care of at there. But let's say because everybody's situations change. So let's say that 10 years, 12 years down the road I get married or something, and then my spouse don't want to bury me in my plot. What happens then? That I've already paid for.
So if that did happen and you guys decided to go a different route.
No, not that I would decide to go a different route. I'll be dead, so I wouldn't know what happened.
So this is the other piece of, I do know, regardless where I'm at in life, that I'll be buried next to Dante, and God, my kids better fight anybody that decides to say different. But nevertheless, that's important to have your will and everything already intact, okay, and already where it needs to be. You could bring your will to us. You could bring your will to the cemetery, so that way, if something happened to you and they're like, oh yeah, you could take it and have it registered with whoever your insurance policy is, because they could be like, hold on, that's not the final wishes. You know, it can be an attorney involved. It can be registered through state, with downtown at the probate building. So yeah, there's a lot of different options there, but it's definitely about having those pre-planning things already done. We do have free will kits, but some people, if you have a good relationship with an attorney, they'll do wills for about $100, $150, sometimes free. Just depending on, but it's definitely something that I recommend having as well. I also recommend having, it's a POD, paid upon death. Mm-hmm. That is something for your account. So one thing about pre-planning that people need to know is, if there are funds that you don't want to go into probate, you have to be knowledgeable that you have to start leaving those things in advance. Not saying somebody can have access to your account, but if they passed away, it automatically goes to whoever they designate that to. So a POD can be split amongst however many people that you want. As soon as that death certificate is presented, your loved one doesn't have to worry about a hold on your funds. They get it right away.
And also a TOD, everybody, a transfer upon death. Just like I got my property, I got a TOD in place. Harvey, go ahead, and then Maddie. Because I know I cut you off, Harvey. Sorry about that. Go ahead.
All right, I just, the question I had about how much would it cost to move somebody that's already buried and put them next to somebody that's buried in a different cemetery?
So it's called a disinterment.
Did you get what I said?
Yep, it's called a disinterment. So that is something that I have done before. I've had people move from Greencastle or different cemeteries to come up to where we are. And for us, you would just pay for the actual burial, but to disinterm, each cemetery has different prices on that. It depends on which cemetery that you're going to. For us, it is around 4,500 maybe. Don't quote me on that. It's 3 times the, yeah, around 4,000 to 4,500 to disinterm and to move. Because we have to have, we have to do a lot with that. So it has to be another vault, everything secured. We have to have somebody from the funeral home present. We have to be present. There is a lengthy process to go with that, as well as if it's not a husband or wife, you have to have a court order in some cases.
Sharon, I see your hand. Do you have a question? I see your hand on the screen. No, okay. Dominique, I'd like for you just to repeat, of course, how important it is when people go into the nursing home or long-term facility to realize that if you have an insurance policy, that insurance policy becomes an asset that is seized by the nursing home. We have some people that have joined us, late in the meeting. So can you reinforce that?
Most definitely. So I'm called to different nursing homes a lot, or from family members a lot, to do something that is called a spin down. That means that policy that you have been spending, that you have been paying on for, oh, God knows how many years, now has accumulated some kind of interest, and that amount of money you now have to spend in a certain time frame, which is generally about 30 days, to purchase things, or they would take it. And it becomes awarded to the state. So those things that they can allow you to purchase are very limited, but funeral home and cemeteries are on that list of things that you could do, as well as they also want you to spend that money to purchase the things that you need for your stay at that facility. Rather if it's a TV, if it's a piece of furniture, if it's your food, and then they allow you to have a certain amount per month. That amount is very little. They also allow you to have, in some cases, 1 car and 1 property. So there's a lot of assets that can be taken to somebody that has multiple of things if they have to go into a facility. On a spin down, that means that you cannot keep your insurance policy anymore, and that $20,000 that you may have had just turned into $4,000 or $5,000 amongst the 2 places. And then on your fixed income, if you weren't able to pay those in full, you'll have to use that for your monthly payments. So what I was explaining to them is the pre-planning aspect for us is you don't have to worry about that. If you pre-plan, you'll be looking at something, and we did some numbers for everybody. So it's around between 3,000 to 4,000, depending on if you want a headstone and pre-planning, and you'll have everything paid ultimately within about 36 to 48 months at a very affordable price, which most likely is less than insurance, not in all cases, but generally about 80% of the time.
This has been a very enlightening evening. You've shared some valuable information to us. And I'm going to ask if you have any summarizing statements before Dr. Forward comes and give us closing remarks. I want to say thank you very, very much. You've given me a lot to think about, and also to realize that, you know, time is upon us, but this is something that we need to prioritize. So again, thank you. And if you'll give us some summarizing information, and Dr. Forward will come and give us closing remarks.
And it looks like there's a hand up there. I see a hand up.
That hand has been floating around the screen.
No, I see a hand up on Tawana Brown.
Oh.
I do have a question. Thank you, President Forward, and thank you, Vice President White. This has been very informative. I've actually learned a lot, and I apologize for actually getting on the call late, but I did have a question. I was wondering, I know with life insurance policies, when someone passes away, there's the funeral home is able to kind of like do a search to see if the individual had insurance. And so I was just wondering, if I did pay for my burial at West Memory, how would my son, how would he know that that's where, you know, my plot is? I mean, no, I know obviously I would tell him, but let's say he couldn't find the paperwork and he didn't know that I paid for that. So how would they find out that information?
So that can be left into multiple of things. We always recommend telling your family members, not just one, you know, tell them all, because they may want to pre-plan as well. And, you know, the word of mouth gets around, so everybody knows that you pre-planned there. Sometimes they call us just to verify, because they'll not know exactly where somebody pre-planned at, but they'll know that, hey, the family is saying that they pre-planned somewhere and they have loved ones out there. So can you just check the records? Because we keep everything in file of what anybody does. We also have a pre-planning guidebook that we give you guys, where you can place information, not just only from the cemetery and what you've done with us, but it has different things about a lot of different assets that you may have, whether it's what bank you bank with, what life insurance you have through, whether if it's your grandparents' names. It's just a book that just asks a lot of questions that you believe for your loved ones. As well as you can also, if you pre-plan with a funeral home, or you know what funeral home that you are going to go to, they also can have those things stored, and we can provide them with the information of what you did pre-planning wise with us.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, one other thing is we also provide free will kits. So that's definitely something that I recommend leaving in your will.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
See, that's something I learned too, because so now I do have a will, and I have a very robust will, but apparently it's not that robust, because I don't think I put in there the exact place that I desire to be buried at. You know, even though I've already paid for my plot and everything, and got my headstone, in the process of getting my headstone ordered, but I don't think I actually put that in my will. So you gave me something else to think about. I appreciate that. So
no problem. I think everybody knows where you're going. If something happens to you, I'll tell them. Okay. I got your back on that one. I think they know where both of us will go. So yeah, we won't be too far from but I appreciate it. Yeah. But definitely, you know, just to kind of sum things up, is the big thing is pre-planning, knowing that insurance is for the living a majority of the time, because we want to leave somebody that we loved or took care of something. And generally insurance is that amount of something that we want to leave them. Even if we have a policy, sometimes this helps. That policy that it stands, sometimes this just helps with giving them a little more, as well as it takes away from something that they have to do. Because when somebody comes into our cemetery that's already pre-planned, All they have to do is give us the date of the service and sign a form saying that, hey, yes, we do know that our loved one is going to that space, and because that's what they've been telling us our whole life. Sit with me for about an hour, and I have to ask you questions that you may not want to be asked at the time, that you just want to greet and take care of things like getting your loved one's outfit and the things that you need to prepare for the obituary and the services. So it's not only good for just saving money, it saves time. It's not being a burden on your loved one of them having to think of things that you may have wanted. They know what you wanted, and they'll be able to set out your wishes knowing that they honored you well in doing so. It stops from fundraising, and it just helps you overall be prepared and to start this tradition for your loved ones to be prepared, so no one in your family has to go with knowing that they just weren't able to, or they're feeling emotionally like they failed you. Affordably as well. Just remember that planning ultimately sets a price and you get a discount as well.
Okay. Are there any other questions, burning questions? Because these, as I said, this is information that has been provided to let us know how important it is to prioritize this aspect of our life.
Vice President White, Tom Roberts. I heard her comments about the amount of money, and I added it up to like 10, and President Forward came up with 16. So in her closing comments, can she just kind of go over those figures again? Because I'm thinking it's anywhere between 10 to 16. And I added it up and I got like 10 to 12,000. But then President Forward said 16. But that would be helpful to know in closing comments.
So the reason why we came up with two different amounts is because President Ford most definitely honored his wife the way that she would have wanted to. She definitely went out as the queen that she was. So in saying so, her final wishes and her celebration of life for her passing, he probably did spend about that amount of money to do so, because everything that he did was very elaborate, because he had a lot of things to do in honoring her. He had a lot of people that he had to accommodate. Everybody is different. So his most likely would be the same way, because you have to find a large facility, and you have to think about it in passing. When people are thinking about insurance and money and adding things up, they're not adding the little things that add up. The outfits that the family members have to pay, the food, the repast, the building that you have to set the repast on. There's a lot of costs that people are just saying, oh, the cemetery is going to charge me this amount and the funeral home is going to charge me this amount. But those expenses, they're much further than that. So what President Ford said was not wrong, because he had a lot of people that he had to accommodate, but that may not be for everybody's case.
All right, we know how President does it in style. So, all right.
All right, I have a question.
Oh, go ahead, Derek.
My question is, I don't know if I come in late, but I don't know if you covered about the living trust, and I just wanted to know between a will or a living trust, which one is the best setup
for different purposes?
So, oh goodness. That to be all the way honest with you, I'm more so big on things, and even with a will, I think that a will is good to have, but I also think that a will, a will kind of helps you when you're going into things such as probate and when you have a lot of assets. So it's kind of hand in hand.
So which one is the best? I know how the will works, and I kind of got an idea how the living trust works, but I'm trying to see what would be the best benefit?
It depends on what kind of assets that you have.
Okay.
So ultimately, if you have like a lot of real estate, if you have it just depends. If you have different investments and things, you kind of want to go into the trust part of it. If it's just a will of you leaving something to a multiple of people, you just want to have that will
Right.
just to let them know where you have things to. And then it also depends on how many people that you have to leave these things to.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem.
All right, President Ford.
Vice President White, great job at putting together the town hall on pre-planning and burial services. In fact, I loved it so much that I think that we need to do this again in about another 3 months, because a lot of people dying every single day. And there's people that are dying that's not prepared. And dying is a part of life, and we need to be prepared when a loved one dies. And a lot of times, oftentimes, we leave a burden on our loved ones when we could get the appropriate insurance, or either just the least amount of insurance to just take care of yourself. And if you have children, then it's your responsibility as that parent to ensure that you have insurance for your children, if they're still kids, so that you're not leaving a burden on somebody else. My family has done it before. We've got together and had to pull financial resources together to bury someone. But that's not the most expedient thing to do. And really, you should be prepared to be able to do that yourself as an adult. If you say you're an adult, handle adult business, and that's really what it's about. So I really think that we need to do this again. So if you could get with Ms. Vanzant, maybe, I don't know, we're in February now, maybe summertime to do this again. And maybe we can ask somebody from a funeral home, that can answer the questions from a funeral home perspective. We cannot not do these enough, because I've seen, just like Ms. Vanzant said, I've seen where families arguing and bickering over this and that when they can deal with those things beforehand and then really focus their energy and their time on the person who passed away. So thank you all for putting this on, Ms. Vanzant, First VP White, for putting this town hall on, and I think it was great. And I just look forward to doing this again sometime in the summer, and then maybe even in the winter. People die every day, and we know that. So it really makes me want to, after I retire, maybe get into that line of work, because I know that I have a job. So
successful. I think you know enough people to be very successful at it. I also think a good date would maybe, I don't know, Mrs. White, around Memorial Day time. And the reason why I say that is because that is our busiest time of the year, because that is the one time of the year that it seems like everybody is going to view and to see their loved ones. That is when families get together, and there's no greater time that I see loved ones coming or flowers on a grave outside of Memorial Day. So if we could, that would give people the opportunity while they're coming to visit their loved ones to maybe think about stopping and talking to me or to wherever they plan on going, and further getting that information and possibly starting some things for pre-planning if they want to wait and, think about it, talk to their better halves or whatever they may need to do, children, and that'll give them enough time to do so.
Well, thank you for that suggestion, and certainly we'll take that into consideration in our planning. So again, thank you. And thank you to everyone that attended tonight's session. We certainly hope that there are some great takeaways for you.
And you know, lastly, and if you all have not done your pre-planning, I would encourage you, as well as your extended family members, to speak with Ms. Vanzant, to make those arrangements, to utilize her expertise when you're making your plans, especially if you're going out to West Memory Garden. If you know that you want to go to West Memory Garden because you may have family members there, but I think she's someone that will take care of your family and take care of your family well. So that's coming from your president.
Thank you,
Thank
and
you so
have
much.
a good night.
Thank you, guys. You too.
All right, take care. Bye-bye.